the summer of 1859. Now today we know Isaac Smith as John Brown, but as he was many things, he was not always apt to tell the truth, and John Brown stayed in this building for most of the summer of 1859. Now, this belonged to a man by the name of Mrs. Ritter. Mrs. Ritter's husband, a good friend of mine, don't you know, had passed away early in that spring, and she was having a little trouble making ends meet. Now, she went to church with my family and myself, and the church helped as much as they could. I have to admit, the Pennsylvania Dutch aren't noted for letting loose their money too easily. She took in boarders to make ends meet, and a man came to her door. Not unusual at all. They would come to the Diamond and ask where they could stay, and we'd say the Franklin Hotel, or direct them to a bunch of other places here in town where they could board. And so he was sent down here because Mrs. Ritter had a room. Now, he actually asked by name for Mrs. Ritter's establishment, which now, looking back, seems quite strange, since he was a stranger to our town. He must have been here for some time before he asked for a place to stay, so that he knew that this would be the place that would be perfect for what his plan was. Now, the reason we think, now, looking back, that he liked Mrs. Ritter's place was because if you go to the second story and look out the back window, the window from the room where he stayed, it overlooked what at the time were the rail yards and warehouses along the railroads. Now, that's where we now know in late August of that year, 15 boxes of ammunition and rifles came by railroad to our peaceful little place. We know in just a few years this place would be everything but peaceful, but at that time to have 15 boxes of rifles delivered here and not be part of the federal government was unheard of. And this man, Isaac Smith, would have raised some eyebrows had we known he was John Brown, because we have papers here, not the travelers here, and we're not the backwoods town, don't you know. If we knew all about what had happened out in Kansas with Mr. Brown and his Osawatomie massacre and how he hacked to death in the name of Almighty God some peace-loving folks, whether they believed in slavery or not, that's just not right. Now, old Isaac Smith stayed here, John Brown, don't you know, and he went downtown on many a night, and I saw him there myself. He came in my store, don't you know, and he bought several things, I remember, because he questioned me about my prices, and nobody questions Jacob Hoke about his prices, as if I'm going to take more money than I deserve. But he came in, he bought hobnails for shoes, he bought a hammer, he bought an ungodly amount, pardon us, man, an ungodly amount of rope, don't you know. I should have known. Hopefully it was some of the rope they used to hang him. It's not that we're against John Brown and what he stood for. Most folks here in about the time of the Civil War could care less one way or another about slavery. The only thing that we didn't really like about the idea of slavery was that if all the free slaves are freed, where were they going to come? They were going to come here to Chambersburg and Franklin County, and we weren't quite sure what that meant for our job market and our young laborers here. So it's not that we were against slavery or for slavery, but in years to come we found that we learned about the evils of slavery, and many of our people in time came to the opinion that we should help the poor slaves as much as we could. So had we known this was Mr. Brown, it's unsure whether we would have let him stay or not. He was a very controversial figure and a very controversial subject. I think most people here believed in what he was fighting for, but didn't quite believe in the way he went about it. Now, there was another man that came here to visit that's related to Mr. John Brown, not by blood, but in story, and that